Hello, my dear gardeners! Stem-boring insects on roses can be quite devastating for some gardeners and can be almost unnoticeable for others. For example, me in my garden, 12 years of gardening here in this garden, I had only one incident of rose stem-boring insects. So let's talk about those bugs, what they are, what type of damage they do to our roses, and the most important thing, what to do to minimize that damage and minimize the activity of stem borers. So very often when we hear stem borer on our roses, we assume that it's only one insect. Actually, it's a big group of different insects, wasps, bees, hunting wasps, which are attacking our roses and other plants in the rose family. Sometimes they go beyond the rose family, and they differ by geography and by the amount of damage they do on our roses. So, by geography. For example, here, I live in North America, zone 6-7, and in our area, the well-spread stem borer on roses would be rose stem borer sawfly. And in the west, the bug would be different. It would be raspberry horntail, I believe. And you might say raspberry, not rose. Well, raspberries and roses happen to belong to the same rose family. And when plants belong to the same plant family, it means they do share characteristics, growing characteristics, flowering characteristics, and they usually do share pests which attack the members of this family. So in my garden, right there, I have raspberries, and every year I have these several tips going like this, and it means that my raspberries are attacked by stem borer. And what I do every year, I vigilantly watch my raspberries, especially now at this time of the year when new stems are being created. And I see once that stem goes down, I quickly cut it off together with the larva inside, hopefully, and I dispose of it. So that's a connection between raspberries and roses. They belong to the same family. What type of damage they do on roses? Well, the damage differs. Some of stem borers are very harmful. Some are quite beneficial. For example, there are hunting wasps, which are actually good protecting our roses from aphids. And why is that? Well, very often when we look at the damage those hunting wasps do to roses, they dig holes in the cut wood, especially when we do trimming in spring of our roses. So there are wide stems. Stems are wider than a pencil. That's where these hunting wasps will come in, and then they will make a little chamber in the stem. I must say that the damage they do to roses is not stem killing. That chamber host, I'm not sure if one larva or many larvae. And what the hunting wasp does, hunting wasps go around the rose, hunt for aphids, paralyze them, pack them into that little nest it makes in the stem of the rose, put a little bit food of there for a larva to eat, and then lay eggs there, and then seal it, and that larva which hatches there will have all the aphids and all the good food to eat, and then a new hunting wasp is born and it leaves the nest. So very often the stems in that situation do not suffer from severe damage, and rose kind of coexists. It is cosmetical. A lot of rosarians don't like it, those holes in the stems. And very often it's hard to say who is doing the hole. Somebody, the stem borer, who is really going down, or it's a beneficial hunting wasp. It's hard to say, so since it's hard to say, usually a recommendation would be the same in protecting those canes. But we're going to talk about it later. What type of damage do stem borers do to our roses? Well, the best known symptom would be those trimmed canes with a hole inside of them. And again, it can be beneficial wasps. And then another symptom would be when we have this beautiful, juicy stem going strong. It's a new one with promise of foliage and blooms. And suddenly, one day we come to look at it and it just falls down. It looks like it's severely deprived of water. Well, if the whole plant is nice and healthy and this shoot is for whatever reason is like this, it means something got inside of that stem and is blocking the access of nutrients and water to that stem, and that's why it is wilting. So that would be another good symptom of presence of stem borers on roses. Another way to see that you have some trouble inside the stems would be if you have a wound to the stem and suddenly have this widening like a knob in the stem, and very often that stem is not doing very well on top from the knob and even breaks at the point of that damage. Also, it can symbolize that the stem borers are here. So they can be quite destructive, and some of them can even bring to the death of the plant if we are not really watchful and if we have big infestation of them. Well, I must say that in my garden, for 12 years we are gardening here on this property, I had only one severe case where literally the whole stem on my climber, generous gardener, started collapsing as if it was just drying up, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, something is eating it from within. So what I did, I went ahead and I cut it all the way to the ground. There was no way I could save that stem, and I started investigating. I started kind of opening the stem from the bottom up, and sure enough, I found larvae there. So I just destroyed that stem, and since then I never had any incident of stem boring infestation. And you might ask, why is that? Well, let's move into the next topic. What can we do to prevent that damage? And I know some gardeners are struggling mightily against stem borers on roses. Well, there is the good news and the bad news. Let's start from the bad news. The bad news is that there are no products which you can go to the garden center, purchase, use it on your roses or other plants in your garden, and get rid of these pests inside the stems. Well, the good news is you can do 3 different things in the garden to minimize the presence of stem borers or to get rid of their destructive behavior in the garden. So, step number 1, very important one. Usually when the plant is weakened, stressed, because of lack of water, lack of sun, lack of nutrients, in the case of roses, right? Roses are highly developed plants in the garden, so they do need a lot of attention from us if we want them to perform well. So if they are stressed, remember, stressed plant, the beginner gardener, attracts insects, parasites and diseases. So actually stem borers will find, they say that stem borers will find a weakened plant, the stressed plant in the garden, and they will attack that plant. So the first good practice in the garden, keep your roses well watered, on a great location, on the sunny location with a lot of nutrients and generally well attended. And here's a video about the health of the rose, because very often the gardeners tend to think that everything what they do should be done to the top of the plant, the part of the plant which is above the soil. But actually what is most important is what is happening underneath the soil, in the root system of the plant. So here's that video. So that's number 1. Keep your plants healthy and stem borers might stay away. Step number 2 would be don't damage the stems of roses, because what happens, there are some wasps, bees, which are attacking, let's go deeper into it. So the female is looking for the wounded stem and lays eggs near that wound, because that would be the entrance point into the stem for larvae which hatches. So when larvae hatch, they go inside the stem and start their eating destructive habit, and then that habit stops the nutrients flow down and up the stem, and stem is dying off. So make sure that you move your equipment, and I know very often it's difficult. In my case, we have 3 kids, so stuff is flying around the garden, and sometimes it's very difficult for me to keep my roses without wounds. So we are moving to step number 3, what you can do in case you have wounds or you're trimming your roses and you know that you have heavy presence of stem borers in your garden. So this is what you do. You borrow your kids' Elmer's glue and you use it on your roses. And you know what? Now when you read about treatment of trees, especially trees which have cut limbs, broken limbs, now the general recommendation is not to use any sealants. And in our Master Gardener program, we were really taught not to use any sealants on trees. So that's a different story. But when you deal with roses and you have that pressure from stem borers, I would highly recommend to use just humble Elmer's glue. Some people say that you can use nail polish. But nail polish, you know, it's more difficult. Elmer's glue is so easy to apply. There's no need to order some special sealants from the internet or go into the store and buy them. And since in my garden I don't have a severe pressure of stem borers, I've kind of relaxed about it. So very often when I trim my shrubs in the garden, I do Elmer's glue. My climbers, when I can't get to them, I don't. But if you have a pressure of stem borers, in your case, every wound, I would just cover it with Elmer's glue. And somebody was asking me, how do I do that? Well, it's very easy. You just dab your Elmer's glue on your finger, and let's say this is the stem of the rose. I have a cut here, and you just do this, and that's the end of that. And this glue, Elmer's glue will dry, will seal the stem, and stem is not going to be damaged by any wasps, bees, sawfly and whatnot. So vigilance in the garden, sealing all those wounds, keeping your rose as healthy as they can be by keeping soil very healthy, and making sure that you seal all the wounds, cuts and damages, accidental damages in the garden. All right, so that's it. I hope this video was successful. It would be lovely if you would subscribe and like this video, and I will see you in my next video. Happy gardening!